OG Rose, and today we're going to be talking about collective consciousness and trust, a problem for the living and the fake. In our hyper-connected internet age, we are all practically part of a collective consciousness. You know, you access Facebook, you can see the images and experiences of other people. They can access our Instagram, Twitter, news. Daniel Frege will talk about how technologies are not external to us. They're kind of an extension of ourselves. And so when you have hyperconnectivity in the world, there is a very real sense in which you're part of that hyperconnectivity, that you are hyperconnected. And if consciousness is so constantly on the internet, using media, then we really do have something like a collective consciousness that we are living and using all the time. It is very difficult to create trust between two people. It takes years, frankly, and it can take 3 minutes to destroy it. You know, they always say a reputation takes years to make and minutes to destroy. Something similar occurs with trust. It takes years to make, it's very hard to make and very easy to lose. And, it makes sense, right? I mean, if you're going to trust someone, you're going to put your defenses down and they could kill you. So it's kind of rational to have a high bar before you trust someone. There's also a human tendency that, if you have 100 people say your short story was really good and one person says it's bad, we tend to focus on the one person who said it's bad. We tend to remember insult more than compliment. We tend to focus on the bad. And again, this could be because of a self-defense mechanism or a survival mechanism from our lizard brain, as Godin will talk it. We don't want to die. And so we're really, really sensitive to negativity, really sensitive to insult because we want to get it right, because we want to survive. And if somebody says, if our neighbor says one mean thing to us, it can take years of niceness before we forget that one mean thing. It's just really, really difficult to move beyond that one mean thing. Well, in a collective consciousness, the probability that we are going to be able to form trust between billions of people is really low. It's hard enough to form it between 2 people, 3 people. Like if you look in your own life, the amount of work it takes to create trust just with one person is really high. And so to create strong trust with 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, that's really high as well. And to maintain that trust in a meaningful way. Most of the time, we trust our neighbor enough to turn off the Christmas lights. We'll ask him to go over and do that. But will we trust our neighbor with our money or with our children? Maybe not. So we tend to give out degrees of trust. It doesn't tend to be all or nothing. And frankly, we also argue in the paper on trust that trust shouldn't be something that is earned. It should be given or withdrawn. But even that, having someone keep trust and keeping a high level of trust is quite difficult and takes a lot of time and a lot of work. And it's just not going to be the case that we can extend that to many people. And yet with a collective consciousness, it feels like we need to and we should. So there's going to be some anxiety there. Furthermore, the likelihood that something in that collective consciousness bad occurs is very high. And as we said, it seems natural for the brain to focus on the bad. And so when that bad thing inevitably occurs, that's what we're going to focus on, and that's what's going to stand out relative to the rest of the collective consciousness. And whenever that bad thing occurs, it becomes rational not to trust. Because look, a bad thing happened, and so we withdraw trust. And I think what's important is that with a collective consciousness, I don't think we really so much withdraw trust from single people or single events. Like if there's a kidnapping, it's a horrible thing, but if there's a kidnapping in Atlanta, Georgia, we don't withdraw trust from, say, that one person in Atlanta, Georgia who did the kidnapping. We tend to withdraw it from everyone. We tend to start seeing everyone as potential kidnappers, and we start seeing the whole world as a place that kidnapping occurs in. So the bad things that happen in the collective consciousness do not lead to a withdrawal of a single extension of trust, but a more general extension, retraction of trust. And so we tend to trust everyone a little bit less. We tend to trust ever going outside a little bit less. So the loss of trust is multiplied, I think. Also, if we're, say, a liberal and a conservative and, say, Texas does something crazy, then we're more likely to withdraw trust from all conservatives, not just some conservatives. And that's going to lead to tribalism and withdrawal. Now, it should be noted that when trust is withdrawn, cynicism tends to bloom, and skepticism. We tend to be more skeptical, but in a kind of cynical way, not in a true skeptical way, which can be a good thing, as talked about in The Death of Skepticism. But anyway, we tend to become more cynical. And the thing is about cynical is that in order for me not to be cynical, I have to believe that a person is genuine, or that my experience is genuine. And the problem is, I decide when someone is genuine. No one can prove to me they are genuine. I can always doubt them. I can always believe they're just doing a social script. I can always say they don't mean what they're doing, that it is a trick. We are never forced to believe that genuineness is present if we don't want to. And if we're cynical, we don't want to. And if there are things happening on the media or in the collective consciousness that are bad, then there is reason not to. It may not be good reason, but it will be a reason enough to convince us that being cynical is the correct response. And when we are cynical, it is very difficult for us to extend trust and to trust. And in fact, we probably will not. So, when there's a collective consciousness, it is probable that trust, general trust, lessens. As general trust lessens, you'll probably have a loss of trust in institutions, which will lead to the Habermasian institutional, the legitimacy crisis that he talks about. As that occurs, then, institutions will lose authority, and as they lose authority, then they'll probably lower in quality, and as that occurs, there will probably be more reason not to trust them, and so we will seem wise to have not trusted them in the first place. It will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Similarly, as our trust is withdrawn from the world in general, cynicism will move in to fill the void. And when we are cynical, it becomes, basically we're not going to restore trust unless we see evidence of genuineness. And in our very cynicism, we will never see reason for that. Nor will we see reason to believe there is genuineness, and thus there will never be reason to extend trust again. And we will not necessarily see reason to trust in the people around us. And this creates a devastating problem. If Francis Fukuyama is correct in his book Trust, that trust basically is what makes society possible, then if indeed the collective consciousness tends to be antitrust, or there's something about it that naturally wanes and removes trust, well, then society is doomed. There's also a way in which the media makes everyone feel like images, abstractions, information, data. And it's hard to trust abstractions. It's hard to trust what just feels to be an image. And if the society increasingly becomes a collective consciousness of images, then there will be no there, as Gertrude Stein said. And if there's no there's nothing to trust. And so trust will be withdrawn. There's a wonderful essay by David Foster Wallace called Up Simba, and he explores the John McCain's 2000 presidential campaign trail. And he notes that McCain was tortured in Vietnam, and he refused to leave torture before other prisoners, even though he was offered, because of a military code. And so Wallace says we have every reason to think that McCain is a genuine and good man. But once McCain gets on the campaign trail, even though you know that he was genuine and real, it becomes difficult to know if that still applies. And also his campaign knows that they can use that very integrity in his favor. And so in a way it becomes part of an act. It becomes part of a performance. But does that mean it's fake? Maybe. Maybe not. And Wallace says that the real McCain is trapped within a dark and box-sized cell, and he's referencing again Vietnam, and that this box that makes McCain real is by definition locked, impenetrable. Nobody gets in or out. And so we can't really know, if McCain is genuine or not. It's up to us. There's no exit. And you see, the thing is, I think everyone today is in some degree of a dark box. All of us, in this age of collective consciousness, we all have a box-sized cell in common. Nobody gets in or out. As Wallace noted about McCain, in the end, whether he's truly for-wheel now depends less on what is in his heart than on what might be in ours. Likewise, whether others believe we are truly genuine depends less on what is in our heart than on what might be in the heart of others. So we're at the mercy of other people as they're at our mercy. And in our collective consciousness, all while unable to control what others think, we've all been taught to have hearts full of doubt, cynicism, and distrust. And so today, as snow faintly falls through the universe, and faintly falls like the descent to the last end upon all the living and the fake, which is a play on Joyce's The Dead. Is it possible that knowing this, that we're all in these boxes, is this something that could save us? Is there something about being aware of the nature of the collective consciousness to remove trust that could be what helps us fight the tendency for the loss of trust? Is that what perhaps we can put some hope in? Is that just a fool's hope? David Foster Wallace ends his essay with the phrase, "Try to stay awake." For more by OG Rose, please visit ogrose.com, Twitter, Anchor, Instagram, so on. And thank you so much for your time.